Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to A Life of Simple Joy with Jean Ann Duckworth. A Life of Simple Joy is brought to you by Devotions to Go, spiritual fast food for women on the go. Now, here's Jean Ann.
Welcome to a new week of A Life... Let me try that again. Welcome to a new week of A Life of Simple Joy. Wow, it really helps if I turn the microphone up, doesn't it? As Mr. Diva told you at the top of the show, I am Jean Ann Duckworth, and I'm here to help you reduce stress in your life in general, and right now, the holidays specifically. I want you to get a grip on yourself. I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm not trying to, cause you to go into incredible stress, but Christmas is exactly 2 weeks from today. I'm just giving you some time to scream and run around the room like Kevin in Home Alone. Are you done? Okay, you're done. There's nothing to freak out about. There honestly isn't. We put way too much pressure on ourselves when it comes to Christmas. Christmas is going to come on the 25th, whether we're ready or not. That's why I've been talking to you about working smarter, not harder, about developing plans, creating a calendar so you know what needs to be done and spreading tasks, not chores. Chores are a burden. Chores weigh you down. Tasks have a little more of a positive connotation. And I want you to stay positive this holiday season. Anyway, a calendar where the tasks are spread out so, weekends, Saturdays don't come, and you're killing yourself. It really does not have to be so overwhelming. The pressure we feel, we put on ourselves. It's just that simple. And you might be sitting there saying, well, no, it's my family. They expect this and they expect that. And that's where this pressure comes from. Well, sweetie, then you need to talk to your family. Now is not the time to be the shy little shrinking violet. Now is the time, in a very polite way, to speak up and say, I only have so much time. I'm only one person, and I need some help. And get that help. I really want you to be able to reach the point where the Friday before Christmas, so a week from this coming Friday, you pretty much have things wrapped up. Oh, maybe, you have to make another trip to the mall. I know that Saturday, my family and I are planning on heading out to the Orange County Marketplace. I know it's going to be busy, but I kind of like going there right before Christmas. Some vendors show up. Orange County Marketplace. I'm sorry, you may not know what that is. I live in Orange County, California. Yes, that Orange County, California, the OC. And we have a fairgrounds here in Orange County, down in Costa Mesa. Every Saturday and Sunday, except when the fair is running, there is a huge, I almost hate to call it a swap meet because it's vendors, little stores, you almost could say, that set up in the parking lot and sell their wares. You pay admission to get in, although if you go online and do a Google search, you can find a free pass to be able to get in. And it's a lot of fun. My darling husband, the infamous Mr. Diva, likes wearing Hawaiian-type shirts, and he has a guy, one vendor we go to buy his shirts, and he gets his shorts there, not those kind of shorts, clothing. Get your mind out of the gutter. I'm not talking about that. He buys his socks there. Boy, I don't know why you'd go to the store to buy socks. There must be, a dozen or more booths that sell socks. And, there's jewelry, and then there's one whole aisle on the end where it's fresh produce and one person that sells meat. And popcorn and hummus, and wow, there's a lot of stuff. Clothing and things, and purses, accessories, a lot of things that you just can't find anywhere else. And usually at the holidays, especially right before Christmas, there will be vendors there that aren't there the rest of the year. So it makes it great. We go there and we do some shopping. It was great last year, Katie and I. We went to one booth. She found a jacket she liked, and I found a pair of sweatpants I liked, and we stood in line behind one another, buying them for each other, and then acted real surprised when we opened them up. So, yeah. Excuse me. I'm not saying that you can't, you shouldn't go out right before Christmas. Yeah, go ahead and go out. Go out and do a little last-minute shopping. It's fun. Yes, I said fun. I think it's fun to, there's a lot of energy. I know there's a lot of stress. So get out there a little early to avoid the people that are just going insane at the last minute. But don't put off anything. If there's something somebody absolutely really wants, don't put that off till then, because the stores may not have it, and then you're going to be the one getting after clerks and scolding them because they don't have what you want, and it's your fault because you waited to the last minute. Shamey, shamey, shamey on you. But to get back to my original, sorry, I'm waking up. I'm here. I want you to be able to spend that last weekend before Christmas, and especially Christmas Eve, relaxing, being able to sit there and watch Christmas movies or put Christmas music on and wrap a few last-minute presents and maybe bake a last-minute batch or two of cookies, do your final touches on Christmas dinner or whatever it is maybe you have to take to Christmas dinner someplace else, and just be able to enjoy time with your family, which is one of the things I'm going to be talking about next week. I don't want you being a frazzled mess. I don't want you to be the woman who is praying for December 26th or maybe January 1st to roll around so you can put this whole mess behind you. Really? Really? I don't want you being that woman. I want you to remember that God didn't send his son just to cause you stress. That's not the purpose of this holiday. We don't celebrate mom, losing her mind every December. We're here to celebrate something much bigger than that. I'm not going to do the reason for the season speech. I know you hear enough of that. But, if nothing else, I want you to be able to relax and enjoy your time with your family. And in keeping with that, today's topic is baking, holiday baking, Christmas baking. I love to bake. I don't bake as much as I once did, which I'll explain all of that when I start getting into today's topic. But I still like baking and do a few select recipes, something else I'll be talking about when I get into the topic. And it just, I don't know, it's a tradition in our family. It's something my mom started with me when I was very young, and it's continued throughout the years. So I'm going to talk to you about baking. Remember, if you visit the website, on the homepage, I've created a calendar of the 12 Simple Joys of Christmas, which is a series I'm doing through the holiday season. And each day there's a different topic, and there's recipes, the links to the recipes I'm going to share. There's a link to the past programs if you missed one. And there are videos for each day. I I actually yesterday I kind of got lazy. I admit it. I get really busy and really active, and yesterday I kind of kicked back and took the day off and read and did a few things around the house and just kind of relaxed. So I'm running a little behind. I admit it. I apologize. But the majority of you listen to this afterwards, after I finish the show. So everything should be up and on the site by the time you get there. Also, be sure to visit the blog. And the website is simplejoy.org, and the Simple Joy blog is blog.simplejoy.org. Yeah, I set up nights coming up with that one. On the website, you find the recipes, you find links to articles, to craft projects that I find on the internet, decorating ideas I find from other sources, just kind of your one-stop place where I do the work and the research and find some of these different things and then post them for you. I also post our free books of the day. Right now, commercial time, ding, 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 ding. Right now, for the holidays, usually Monday through Friday on Amazon in the Kindle store, I offer one of our books as a free download. But for the holidays, excuse me, because I know some people, maybe you've ordered a Kindle for somebody. This is an opportunity to go ahead and load some free books on there for them. I'm thinking. Anyway, right now what I'm doing is I'm doing 2 to 3 free books every day. I'm doing them Monday through Saturday. I'm taking Sunday off. Experience has taught me that all of you don't spend much time on the computer on Sunday, or you're doing other things. So I'm not going to do them on Sunday. Our 3 books today, wait, I've got the list here. Well, I can just do it off the top of my head because it's the first 3, so I remember. Are Bride's Devotions to Go, Busy Mom's Devotions to Go, and Caregivers Devotions to Go. Now, for those of you who don't know Devotions to Go, let me introduce you to this incredible series. Devotions to Go are a series of month-long devotionals for women. When you see them in print size, the books are about the size of your hand. They're 4 by 6 inches, small enough to fit in your purse and take anywhere. They even fit in a pocket, a back pocket, if you want to carry them along that way. Each day's devotional is designed to be short enough that you can do it in a sitting. So if you have it in your purse and you're waiting for the kids to come out of school, or maybe you're sitting in the dentist office, or you're on the sidelines at a soccer game or whatever, just a few minutes in your day, your coffee break at work, you can take your devotional out. It starts with a scripture verse, and then the author, each book has a different author, although some authors have done a couple of books. Each day's devotional is a first-person story that the author is telling, and then a prayer, and usually most of them have some kind of assignment, some little thing you can do while you're sitting there that just reinforces the day's devotion. Some of them have recipes in them. They come in a variety of topics. As I said, today's are brides, busy moms, and caregivers. And caregivers isn't just for like nurses and people like that. It's for the people who provide daycare for your kids. Maybe you have a friend that's taking care of an elderly parent or has a special needs child. A lot of us are caregivers without it being our professional title. And Gigi Murfitt just offers a lot of, just some great guidance and encouragement for those of you who are responsible for the care of someone who is dependent upon you. And there's a lot of other, Tea Lovers Devotions to Go, and Fast Food Diva, and Sweet Tooth Diva, and Diva Delights, and there's 25 plus titles in the Devotions to Go series. There are also other books that we have. For a complete listing of our books, go to our website at simplejoy.org, and at the top of the homepage, I've created a catalog. It's my Simple Joy Cottage Christmas catalog, Amazon edition. All of our books are available on Amazon in print and digital. Not all of them are there in print version, but they're all there in digital version. And if you go into the catalog, there are links so that if you want a print version, you can click on it and order the books. If you want the digital, you can download it or look for the list and see what it is that's free and download it that way. But, yeah, Devotions to Go and free books. Remember, today it's brides. I know a lot of young women get engaged at Christmas, so it's a great time to download brides. Brides, busy moms, like who isn't, and caregivers, Devotions to Go. Free downloads today in the Amazon Kindle store. Just do a search in the Kindle store, Devotions to Go, and the books will come up. All right, I'm going to take a break, and then we'll get started talking about baking. I'm Jean Ann Duckworth, and this is A Life of Simple Joy. Yes, that was me coughing in the background. I remember when I first started this program, I would mute the microphone. And then when the show would go live, I'd, cough and blow my nose and whatever. And imagine my surprise when I started listening. And it didn't matter if I muted the microphone. For some reason, it was still there. So there you have it. Baking, holiday baking, is a fun tradition, a wonderful tradition, as long as you don't put a lot of stress on yourself when doing it. We can take the fun out of absolutely anything very quickly when it becomes almost an obsession with us. It doesn't have to be that way. There are a lot of shortcuts you can use. I'm going to talk about some of them today. You have to, if you enjoy holiday baking, if you're not a baker, then fine, and even then there are still a couple of things you can do. But if you enjoy holiday baking, you have to make it work for you. If in the past you have done dozens and dozens of cookies and, a dozen different varieties, and your kitchen looks like, an explosion occurred in there because there's flour everywhere and your floor's sticky because of the sugar that's on it, and your counters are kind of greasy because of the butter, and it's just, your family comes in and wants to know what's for dinner, and dinner? What do you mean dinner? I've been cooking all day. Yeah, and then it's time to develop a new plan. It just is. I was that person. I've told you, I've got a picture of myself sitting in my kitchen. My hair is just wild. I have my old beat-up apron on, a vintage apron that I bought and just loved and wore until it fell to pieces. And I've got a 25-pound bag of flour and a 25-pound bag of sugar sitting on the floor next to me, and stacks of pounds of butter and a huge bowl in front of me and my measuring cups, and I'm baking like a fiend. And never thought that I could stop doing it because I believe too many people, they liked my cookies, they liked my baking, so how can I disappoint them? So I was wearing myself out for them, and it just wasn't working. And Mr. Diva kept telling me, you can't do this. But you know how it is. I didn't listen. Shame on me. I know. But finally I listened. And I found new ways to do things that allows me to bake at my schedule, my pace, and doesn't cost me a fortune and doesn't wear me out. So let me offer you some tips on how to approach your holiday baking. If you are new to this, there's still time. It doesn't take much. And there are all kinds of shortcuts you can take to make it a lot easier, but to make it unique for you. And that's really what it's all about. Making it work for you and making whatever you create, whether it's cookies, bread, cakes, bar cookies, candy, making it work for you and have it reflect your personality. So I have used the word baking today. I'm finding this works quite well, doing these acrostics like this. B is quite simple. Before you begin, there are certain things you absolutely have to do. And let me look at my list and I'll know. All right. You want to make a list of the baked goods you want to make. Sit down, go through some of your cookbooks. I know many of the cookies that I make, I don't make them the rest of the year. So I have to go through, I have to remember which, I like the powdered sugar cookies. Which recipe is it that I use? Because one recipe, you have to bake them in a low oven for like 20, 30 minutes. And I don't like doing that. So I have another recipe where it's a higher oven and they only bake for 10, 15 minutes. I like that one. So I use that. Go through and just make a list of what it is you want to make and what cookbook the recipe's in, or stick a little Post-it note on it and where it sticks out a little flag and write, chocolate chip, peanut butter, brownies, whatever it might be. Stick a little flag on it or put it on your list and what cookbook and what page, and just go ahead and run wild. This is the planning stage. You can put, 24 different cookies on this list. I don't care. Go ahead and make your list. Then begin paring your list back. I'm going to talk about this more when I get to A, but you have to be somewhat realistic. So, still kind of figure what it is you think you want to do. Remember, this is just the planning stage. The next thing you want to do is, inventory your pantry. You've chosen, 6, 8, 10 different recipes you want to use. you have to decide how many dozen batches, maybe not dozen, but batches of each. And I always have a problem. These recipes will say makes 6 dozen, and then I get 4 dozen, and I'm standing there thinking, what did I do wrong? Now, I know part of the problem is I use a lot of really old recipes. The recipes I share are recipes that we've had around in our family for years, generations, and we have right now in our society, portions are completely different than they were a long time ago. Like when I was growing up, or back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I think part of the problem I have is when they say drop by the teaspoonful, what women would do is they'd dip the teaspoon in the batter, and it would just be kind of the end of the teaspoon, and I'm doing these big portions of batter on my teaspoon. So when it says 6 dozen, it means it's a fairly, not small cookie, but you can probably get 6 dozen. But I always subtract at least a dozen off of it, just to give me an idea. So you're looking at a recipe, and you want to make chocolate chip cookies. That's an easy one. And the recipe says it makes 6 dozen, and you figure 5 dozen, and you want 20 dozen cookies because people really like chocolate chip cookies. So that calls for 4 batches of the recipe. You then have to start making a list of how many cups of flour, how much butter you need. So you have to do a breakdown on what it's going to take to make all these cookies, and then check your pantry and see exactly what you have. Now, you're sitting there thinking, all right, I figured out that I need 50 cups of flour to make everything I want to make. How many pounds of flour is that? There are conversion charts. Go online to see, 1 pound of flour, about how much is it. Here, while I'm talking here, I'm going to open a new window, and I'm going to do a little look here. Measurement conversion charts. Alrighty, let's see here. Capacity and volume. All right, cooking recipe conversions. No, I don't want that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time searching here, but all right, let's see if I can find something. Talk among yourselves. I'll be with you in just a moment. All right. Well, that's not helping me. I know I can find this. How many cups in a pound of flour? Oh, here we go. Okay, so there's about 3 1/3 cups of flour in all-purpose flour. So I found this at myrecipes.com. So, and cups are in a 1 pound box of sugar. Let's see what this says. I don't want that. 1 pound of granulated sugar has about 2 cups of sugar in it. So, see, you can find myrecipes.com. You can find these conversion charts that will tell you exactly. So, you need 50 cups of flour. So you're probably going to need, I probably get 25 or more, 30 pounds of flour. Wow. But see, that kind of puts it in perspective. That's the whole point of why you're doing this, and how many pounds of butter you need. And my tip, here's my simple tip that I'm going to interject right here. I used to make, I take my recipes and I double them and I triple them, and I end up practically crying because I was spending so much time cooking, one kind of cookie. And I think I've told you, I find that to be boring. I'd spend all day in the kitchen, and when I got done, I had, powdered sugar cookies, nothing else. Big deal. I didn't like that. So I only make one batch of cookies at a time, but I may make, 2-3 different kinds of cookies, or, 3 or 4 recipes all in one day. And at the end of the day, I may not have these huge batches of cookies, but I've got a lot of different stuff. So I feel a greater sense of accomplishment. And if I keep repeating that process over the course of a few days, I've made lots of cookies. So you don't have to go out and buy 25 pounds of flour and 25 pounds of sugar, or however they break it down. Don't do that to yourself. Please don't do that to yourself. You're just going to wear yourself out. Go ahead and buy it in, if not the regular, 4 or 5 pound bags of flour. And be careful, because sugar now, it comes in, it's 4 pounds. What is Mr. Diva doing out there? For 4 pounds of sugar in a bag, it's not 5 pounds anymore. Get the 8, 10 pound, whatever, the little bit bigger. You're going to use it. You'll use it through the year, and it'll keep in a container. And, I hear what he's doing. It's trash day. He's rinsing out the trash can. And it'll keep, so you'll be fine. But it's not, this huge amount that's going to be sitting around. Especially if you're living someplace humid, and there's a lot of humidity right now. Even out here, there's a lot of humidity. You're going to end up with a big old block of sugar, and you don't want that. So do an inventory, see what you have, see what you're going to need, especially when it comes to things you don't use all that often. If you don't bake throughout the year, and your baking soda and baking powder is from last year, throw it away and buy new. Doesn't cost that much. Check out your flavorings, the vanilla, the almond extract, and butter extract. I tend to cook with margarine. I know, but I'm cheap or frugal, and don't want to spend a fortune on real butter. So I cook with margarine, but I add butter flavoring to just make it taste a little bit richer. So you might get butter flavoring. You could get maple flavoring. There's all kinds of things. Rum. And you can add these to your cookies, whether it calls for it or not, just to add a little kick. Nutmeg. When I make my pumpkin bread, it calls for cinnamon usually, but I add nutmeg because I like that spiciness to my pumpkin bread. And nuts. If the nuts in the jar on the pantry are from last Christmas, throw them away and get fresh ones, because they won't be very good. If nothing else, they won't be very flavorful, and you don't want that. So inventory your pantry and make a shopping list so that you can go out and get things. I know money's tight, so just buy a few things. Everything's on sale right now. Look to see what's on sale, and that's what you want to buy. I will tell you quite honestly, I don't make chocolate chip or sugar cookies from scratch anymore, as a rule. I buy the pre-made rolls in the refrigerator section. They actually had a special at the grocery store last week. It was great. They had them 2 for $5, and I bought 4 sugar and 4 chocolate chip. And when you bought 4 of them, I got a free gallon of milk. So, yay! That was real good, because milk's expensive. The free milk paid for one of those cookie rolls, at least one. Yeah, one. I'd say milk's about $2.50 for a gallon out here. So I do that, and here's my simple tip. For the sugar cookies, I open the roll and I cut the roll in half right in the middle of the roll. And then I take each, well, let me back up a little bit. I find sometimes they're not quite as firm as I'd like them. So I'll pop them in the freezer just for a couple of minutes, not to get it hard, but just to firm it up so it's easier to slice. Then I cut it in half, cut the roll right in the middle. And then I take each roll and I cut those in half lengthwise. Because I found when I was just slicing it as it was, the cookies were absolutely huge, and we didn't need cookies that were quite that big. So I cut it in half lengthwise, and that way I get more cookies. And I find people go with the number of cookies, not the size of cookies. If you have a cookie the size of a salad plate and you give it to a child, they're still going to look at you and go, just one? You're better off having little cookies that are the size of, maybe a little bigger than a silver dollar, and give them, 3 of them, and yay, they got 3 cookies. So I cut them that way. I put them on the cookie sheet, and I'll tell you about the parchment paper in a minute. And then I brush almond flavoring on top of them. I like the little bit of I like the flavor it gives to my cookies. And then I sprinkle the sugar on it. I put the flavoring on top, first of all, because it holds the sugar in place. Otherwise, the sugar or whatever decorations you put on just kind of rolls everywhere when you put it in the oven. I also like the taste it gives. If you don't like almond flavoring, you can use vanilla. A word of advice. If you use regular vanilla extract, because it's brown, it's going to give the top of your cookies a bit of a brown tinge. What you might do is go to a store, Joann's, Michael's, wherever, any place where they sell Wilton cake decorating products. And in the Wilton section, they should have different types of flavoring. This is where I first found, years ago when I learned to decorate cakes, you couldn't buy the different, like McCormick's that makes the flavorings and spices that you find in the grocery store. They didn't have butter flavoring. You had to buy butter flavoring from Wilton, and the reason you had butter flavoring is when you make those white frostings for the cake decorating, it's made with Crisco, and you really don't want your cakes to taste like Crisco, so you use butter flavoring to give it a butter taste. But if you add regular vanilla to it, it's going to tint that white icing to kind of a beige color. So Wilton has a clear vanilla. If you use the clear vanilla on top of your cookies, it won't tinge the top of your cookies. See, it's these little things you learn. It's funny how you learn something for one thing, and then you can use it for something just absolutely completely different. So I use the refrigerator cookies, and it makes it much easier, and I'm going to give you a tip for the chocolate chip cookies after a little bit. So, baking. Before you begin, go through your recipe books and decide what it is you want to bake. Inventory your pantry so you know what it is you need to buy. Make a list so you can go to the store and buy it. Finally, check your bakeware. If you're like me, I make pumpkin bread and some other breads at Christmas time. You may have a metal loaf pan that you only use at Christmas. It's been stuck in the back of a pantry all year long. Dig it out and make sure nothing's happened to it. Sometimes things like that, they get stuck away. Moisture can get in them. There's nothing worse than you've already mixed everything up. Your oven's preheating. You're ready to bake. You go in and you take out your tin, and you find that it's got all kinds of rust on it. Little bits here and there You can probably scrub that off and clean it real well and grease it real well. It should be fine. But, man, if it is just a wreck, you need a new one. So check your bakeware. Make sure you have what you need to make what it is you want. So that's B. A. Once you have created the list of what it is you think you want to make, and you've done an inventory of your pantry, and you've created your shopping list, you may want to sit down and adjust your thinking. It's all well and good to, go through the cookbooks and go through, I'm not going to say her name, but go through a prominent lifestyle advisors books and look at, I do it too. You look at these photos and these plates and even, especially the older cookbooks I have, they do these beautiful color photos and they have, all these trays of cookies with the Christmas decorations, and I look at it and I think, oh, I want to do that. That looks so nice. That will be so wonderful. And it's easy to get caught up and get carried away. You don't have time to get carried away. Really, do you want to spend all your time in the kitchen having to cook all these cookies, breads, cookie bars, candy, whatever it might be? Or do you want to be able to sit with your kids and read them the Polar Express? Come on. Or, if money is tight, do you really want to have to spend all of that money buying the ingredients you need to do all this baking, and instead of being able to use it for something the entire family can enjoy? I understand with money being tight, and I'm going to talk about this with G. I use baked goods as gifts. It's what I give to a lot of people. There are a lot of people at church that I really like, and I want to give them a little something. Baked goods are very nice. I talked about it last Thursday when I talked about homemade gifts. I make up little baskets with the bread or cookies and some tea or cocoa, and it's just a nice, thoughtful little gift that doesn't break the bank. You can do that quite easily, but the biggest thing besides budgeting your money is budgeting your time, and you have to look at how long this takes. Remember, cookies are very time-consuming. It takes a bit of work to mix up a batch of cookies, and then it's not like a cake where you mix it up, throw it in the oven, and you've got half an hour to go do something else. Cookies are about, on average, 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 per batch, and it's 4 or 5 sheets of cookies per batch. That's a lot of time. That's a whole lot of time. It's an hour to an hour and a half just for one batch of cookies. So you're talking about a whole day spent in the kitchen, and you just might not want to have to invest that. I'm going to give you a tip. I want to do it now. Let's see. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do this now. Let me give you a tip, and then I'm going to take a break, and then I'll give you a recipe for today. Here's my tip. I learned a long time ago how to organize my baking to make the best use of my time. The pumpkin bread, even when I do it in the tiny, the small individual loaves, I have a pan that makes 8 loaves at one time. And I'll do those because if you go to Big Lots, they have the cardboard food trays, and a small one holds one little loaf of bread. And then I can tuck tea or cocoa, something like that, in with it. So even when it's a small loaves, they take about 30 minutes or so to bake. I can mix that up and put it in the oven. Then I'll make a batch of cookies that need to go in the refrigerator, like Spritz butter cookies that you put in a cookie press. I'll mix those up, and I use a food processor because it's a lot quicker. And I'll wrap that in plastic wrap and stick that in the refrigerator. I still have time. I can usually make a fudge because it takes about 15 or so minutes to make a batch of fudge, and have that finished, and still have time to mix up one batch of cookies and start putting it out on the cookie sheets and parchment paper by the time the pumpkin bread comes out of the oven. And I try to make sure that whatever cookie I'm making, the pumpkin bread I think bakes at 350 degrees. So I make sure it's a cookie that bakes at 350 degrees. If you have a cookie that takes a higher temperature, then what you want to do is turn on the oven and let it start preheating. And while it's preheating, mix up a batch of refrigerator cookies or a batch of fudge, something like that, because it's going. If you have a cookie that has to bake at like 400 degrees, it's going to take a little while to get your oven that hot. So you can make a batch of refrigerator cookies, put them away, or a batch of fudge, and have it finished and out of the way by the time you mix up your cookies and start putting them in the oven. So divide up. So this is 2 tips. Number 1 is look at the amount of time it takes to bake something. Start with something that has to be in the oven for a long time, half an hour, whatever. Because if you do a whole loaf of pumpkin bread, that takes an hour. In that hour, there's a lot of stuff you can cook, a lot of things you can be making while that's baking. And then you're ready to go. You already have the cookies on the parchment paper, on the cookie sheets, and it's just a matter of popping them in the oven while you're doing other things in the kitchen. You can be getting dinner ready. You can be, addressing cards. You can be doing the dishes. You can go in and sit down and relax with eggnog, with a little nut, all kinds of things you can be doing. So just kind of think about it for a minute and use your time wisely. And what I used to do is I would do that for a few nights, every other night, let's say. And, in a couple of nights, I had all my baking finished because it really didn't take much. The next night, I'd start out with more pumpkin bread because I do a lot of pumpkin bread. And I'd start pressing my cookies out. And then by the time the pumpkin bread came out, I was ready to go with those. And then while those were baking, I'd be mixing up a batch of something else, maybe another refrigerator cookie for a couple nights later. So you can work this to your advantage so that you're not as worn out and you use your time wisely. Okay, let me take a break. Just adjust your thinking. Did I get it all? Yeah. Only do what you can and do what you have time for. Let me take a break, and I will be right back. I'm being naughty this morning. I'm eating Christmas cookies for breakfast. But, I was going to be talking about baking. How could I not eat cookies while I'm talking about baking? Come on, give me a break. All right, first recipe today. I found this interesting. Black and white brownies. I had forgotten about this recipe. You will need 2 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 1/3 of a cup butter melted, 2/3 a cup of flour, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, oh my goodness, I'm looking at what I did here. 1/2 a teaspoon, hang on, save. Okay, 3/4 a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 2/3 a cup coconut, 1/2 a teaspoon of almond extract, and 2 squares of baking chocolate melted. Now, using your food processor, beat the eggs with the sugar and blend in butter. Now, let me give you a couple of tips here. Number 1, if you are going to melt the butter in your microwave and you have never done this before, please be sure to put something on top of it. A paper towel, some kind of plate that can vent. You don't want it sitting tight or the plate will seal on top of it. But cover it up or you will be cleaning the majority of the butter off the inside of your microwave. It won't be in the bowl anymore. Please trust me on this. Experience is just a bitter teacher. And I learned from bitter experience. So be sure to cover it, or you can melt it on your stove on a very low heat. Don't let it brown. Let it melt slow. Excuse me, my goodness. All right, I think I've got it there. Let it melt slowly, and it needs to cool just slightly. The reason for this is if the butter's too hot and you add it to the eggs, you'll be making scrambled eggs, and you don't want that. So add it a little bit at a time and let it cool down before you add it and mix it. You're going to sift together the dry ingredients. What I would do is I'd melt the butter and then I'd set it aside and then I'd sift the dry ingredients, and by the time you're done, your butter should be cool enough you can add it to the egg mixture. Stir the dry ingredients into the egg mixture. Just add it a little bit at a time and run the food processor. Then what you want to do is you're going to split this batter up. Put half of the batter in a separate bowl. So you're going to have 2 bowls of this batter. In one of those bowls, you're going to add the coconut and almond extract and mix well. In the second bowl, you're going to pour the melted baking chocolate. And just a word of warning, if you've never dealt with baking chocolate, don't do like I did. It looks so yummy. It looked like, Hershey's syrup. It's not. It doesn't have sugar in it. It tastes terrible. Chocolate is just, when it doesn't have any sugar with it. So And again, you need to make sure that melted chocolate cools just a little bit because there's eggs in this mixture. So you've got 1/2 of the batter with coconut and almond in it. The other half of it has chocolate in it. You're going to grease an 8x8 by 2-inch pan and then pour the chocolate batter in first. Spread the batter out and then put the coconut batter on top of the chocolate and spread it out. Do not mix them. It's 2 layers. All right. Bake in a preheated 355-degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes. Let cool and cut into squares. Now, let me give you a little tip here. I haven't tried this yet. I'm going to try this. I'm going to make brownies. I'm going to try this out. I just have a problem with brownies. I never seem to be able to cut my brownies so that they look pretty. And I will give credit where credit is due. I like reading cozy mysteries. Cozies are the ones where it's an amateur detective. Miss Marple would be cozies. One of the cozy series I like to read is a Hannah Swenson series. It's by a woman named Joanne Fluke. And Hannah Swenson has a shop in, I think, Minnesota, Wisconsin, anyway, where she makes cookies. She's a cookie baker. but she makes bar cookies and so on. And in each of the books there are recipes. I was reading one of her Christmas books, and I was reading a recipe for a bar cookie, and she had something in there where I looked at it and I thought, I never thought of doing that. What she suggests doing is, instead of spraying the baking pan with, like Pam, a cooking spray, and baking it in the pan, you take the pan and you line it completely with foil. So you need to buy a roll of aluminum foil that's going to be wide enough that will cover not just the bottoms, but will go over the sides of your baking pan. You fit it down in all the corners so it fits perfectly in your baking pan. Spray that with the cooking spray, and then put the batter inside of that and put the whole thing, the cooking pan, the aluminum foil, and the batter, in the oven and bake as usual. You let it cool a little bit, and then you take the foil and very carefully lift the foil out of the cooking pan, peel back the edges, and then let cool completely, and then it's free of the pan. You can cut it. And I looked at that and I thought, holy cow, it will work with that. It'll work great with my fudge. I never, ever thought of doing something like that, ever. So thank you, Joanne Fluke. Thank you, Hannah Swenson, for that great tip. Before you begin, there's a series of things you want to do. After you do that, adjust your attitude and your shopping list, your list of cookies you want to make. Kate, you want to keep your cookies fresh, and you may want to keep them hidden. This is just a real quick piece of advice. Most of the baking I do is for my family. I'll take a picture of it. I'll do more baking because everything just gets decimated very quickly. But I'll make some more cookies and things and put them out. But in our living room, one of my dressers is in the living room, and on top of it, I do my 3-tiered, cookie stand. And I have different cookies in there. And then I have another plate with the powdered sugar cookies because I sprinkle powdered sugar. There's powdered sugar all over the plate. And then I have another little plate that has fudge on it. And I have boxes of chocolate on there. The fact that we don't waddle out of the house like little roly-polies by the time the 1st of January comes is absolutely amazing. But I keep the cookies out there, and because they sit out, they don't sit out so long that they go stale. But they aren't as crispy as I like them to be. But my family likes them. They don't mind. Chocolate chip cookies I made last night, still tastes good. So you may have little kids and might not be able to do that, or else, you'll just find them in a sugar daze laying on the floor going, and you don't want that. Make some cookies you can share with your family. But if you're going to be giving cookies out as gifts, you may need to find ways to store them and then hide them so that nobody gets in them. Not that they're going to be searching for cookies, but if somebody's digging in the pantry and they find this tin and, you're not home, what's in here? And they open it up, Christmas cookies, and they start eating, and you come home and find that, the cookies you made for the cookie exchange at church are now gone, and the exchange is tomorrow morning, you're up a creek. So if you know your family knows how to forage, you may have to hide cookies. I was just reading something, I was reading a great book. I'd read it before, where Joanne Fluke and Lisa Levine and can't remember who the third author was, but it's author of the Lucy Stone series, it's one book, and each of them, it's just kind of a mini book for each of them. And in the Lucy Stone one, she had been to a cookie exchange, and on Christmas Eve, her husband asked about the cookies, so she goes in and gets them. I thought it was funny. She had them hidden in the blanket chest up in the attic so that nobody would find them. Every year she has to find a new hiding place for the cookies or they'd be gone, and it's the tradition in their family to eat them on Christmas Eve. So I thought that was pretty funny. So keep your cookies fresh. A piece of bread in with your cookies. It's funny how it works. If your cookies, it's something that needs to be baked, the bread will take the moisture, or the cookies will take the moisture from the bread, and it keeps them moist. If the cookies need to be dry and crispy, the bread absorbs the moisture out of the air, and the cookies stay crisp. It's just amazing how that works. Let me see what tip I have here. The baking schedule, I did that by temp. Parchment paper, I've been mentioning that. Let me talk about it. I used to use parchment paper, and parchment paper used to be kind of a pain to find. Once upon a time, what some people would do for parchment paper is use brown grocery bags. Here's the advantage to parchment paper. I have two nice cookie sheets. Once upon a time, years ago, I needed to have like half a dozen. Now I can get by with two and have, 4, 6 sheets of parchment paper. I start out by doing putting cookies on the cookie sheet, and then I take the rest of the parchment paper, measure it out before I put cookies in the oven, and I can spoon out, cut out, press out, whatever it takes, and put the cookies on the parchment paper and have an entire batch ready to bake, and then I can focus on mixing up the next batch of cookies that I want to make. Parchment paper saves you money because you don't have to have the extra cookie sheets if you don't need them. It saves you a lot of time, and I keep using them. I don't use it once and then throw it away. I keep using it over time because of the butter in the cookies. The paper starts to get rather brown, and when it's getting fairly dark, I throw it away and I get a fresh sheet. But I can get quite a few batches out of a sheet of parchment paper. So parchment paper is just a godsend. I found a coupon in the paper for it the other day, and some of the stores, one of the grocery stores I shop in, has their own brand of parchment paper, so you can try it that way. I found some at the dollar store. It's not going to have much in there because parchment paper is usually about $3 for a package. But if you want to try it to see, buy it at the dollar store and try it out. Just, for $1, if you find you don't like it, fine. But I don't know why you wouldn't. It's wonderful. So keep things fresh. Use your imagination. If time is of the essence, you really don't have a lot of time to bake, but you still want to bake, you can use your imagination. Upon a time, I used to make my pumpkin bread from scratch, and then I discovered that Trader Joe's and Fresh and Easy both have wonderful packaged pumpkin bread to make mixes. So I buy those, and I mix them up, and I doctor it by adding nutmeg, quite a bit of nutmeg, and I put dried cranberries in it. Run the cranberries through the food processor to chop them up a little finer, and I put pecans in there. And then I divvy it up in my little individual pans, and I bake it that way. And everybody thinks I make this homemade bread, and I'll actually tell them what mix I use and how I adapt it for my own purposes. But it saves me a lot of time, and it'll go on sale, and I stock up on it because I like it on into the new year. Pumpkin bread, you slice it and put cream cheese on it, and it's wonderful. I like it for breakfast. I like it. I'm a big-time coffee drinker, but when cold weather comes, I do like teas. I like spiced tea, and pumpkin bread is very good with spiced tea. So I adapt it that way. Another thing I was thinking, my family doesn't do chocolate chip cookies with nuts, but if you have a family that likes nuts with chocolate chip cookies, I thought of this morning. Buy the rolls of chocolate chip cookies. And you're supposed to spoon it out. You can spoon it out, but spoon it out and roll it into a ball and take some nuts, some pecans, walnuts, whatever it is they like, and chop it up, not super fine, run it through the food processor until it's, fine to medium size bits of nut. Put it in a bowl. I'd probably put it in a pie plate and roll the top of your cookie, just half of it, roll it a little bit in the nuts, and then put the uncoated side down on the sheet so that the nuts are on top. And then you can have chocolate chip cookies with nuts. It's just covered with nuts, not baked in. If your family's really fussy, then take the roll of cookies, put it in a bowl, add the nuts, stir it up, and scoop it out and bake it that way. Ha 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 ha. See? You can do all kinds of things. You can take the sugar cookies in the rolls and roll them out and cut out your own sugar cookies, which is a lot of fun for the kids. Again, it tends to be rather soft, so put it in the freezer just for a little bit, a couple minutes, until it's nice and firm. You should still be able to squish it, but you should be able to roll it out more easily. You can be imaginative when it comes to packing your cookies, and I'm going to talk about containers in a bit. Be imaginative when it comes to creating gift sets. So you don't have to just give somebody a little loaf of pumpkin bread. You can give them a loaf of pumpkin bread and a tea bag or two, or even a little. You can go to the store, go to like Cost Plus. Cost Plus is just fabulous this time of year. You can find mixes. You can find scones. Do you know how cool it is to give somebody scones for Christmas? Because who makes scones? Well, I have a friend, Trish Tallman, that makes scones. Wonderful, wonderful scones. I miss you, Trish. But, you can make scones. You find scones there. You find other bread mixes, muffin mixes there. You can find small jars of jam that go well with these breads. Find little packages of cream cheese, not, like the little 4-ounce or 3-ounce or whatever size, but little tiny ones. Go to like Smart and Final, and you in the refrigerator section, you should be able to find the individual. Like when you go to like Starbucks and you get a bagel and they give you the cream cheese. Packages like that you can put with the bread. But Cost Plus has different kinds of teas. You can find small individual packages of ground coffee. Look around and look for things that you can pair up with the stuff you bake. Cookies with, you can add candies to it. There are so many fun things you can do when you take the time to shop around and see what's out there. So be creative and put these things together. And my simple tip for creativity is containers. Half of the fun of it is the way you package it. There are a lot of entrepreneurs now, cottage industries out there with homemade items. So when you look at the things, the women that are out there making cupcakes and breads and whatever it is, part of the appeal of what they're making is the way they package it. So go to the store, go to Big Lots, go to the dollar stores, go to the regular stores, Walmart, wherever, and look at Joann's. Joann's has a lot of stuff because they sell Wilton. So Wilton makes a lot of things where you can package cookies, so it looks like it came from a bakery. Go there and look and see what's available and find creative ways to package the products that you're giving out. And that reminded me of something else I'm going to share with you. Pretzels. I have to remind me to tell you about pretzels. So let me take a break, and I will be right back. I'm Jean Ann Duckworth, and this is A Life of Simple Joy. Let me tell you about pretzels. I thought of this the other day. If you don't have a whole lot of time and you're not all that creative, or, baking, it takes practice to bake. I think back to when we were growing up and my sister was learning how to bake and how many burnt chocolate chip cookies we made. And I'm talking the roll cookies. Because we'd eat the burnt ones, so nobody would know that we burnt any. Here's something you can make, and you can make it with your kids, and it's simple, but it looks really cute. I saw the other day at, I think it was CVS, they had tubs of the big pretzel sticks on sale, and you can find the big pretzel sticks. You can probably find them in bags. Go to the dollar store and see if they have them. Someplace like Smart and Final, Costco may have them. But you want to have quite a few. There are two ways you can do this. You can buy vanilla icing, frosting, or you can buy the white vanilla or the white chocolate. Yes, I said it, Ray. White chocolate. I have a friend that says if it's white, it's not chocolate. Well, whatever it is. And melt it. But buy the canned icing and put it in the microwave just for a little bit, just to make it, you don't want it to turn into a liquid, but you want it to be a little bit runny. Stir it up really quick. Before you do this, open the pretzels and have them all lined up and have sprinkles sitting out like bowls of them, or, the pie plate ready. And what you're going to do is you take the pretzels, you soften the frosting, take the pretzels and dip it in it real quick so that it coats it. And if you got it a little too runny, let it thicken up and do it a couple of times so you coat them just part way. Just dip them in far enough that maybe you touch the bottom, so about half the pretzels covered. And then roll in the sprinkles. Set them on wax paper and let them cool. And then you can tie them up with a ribbon and put them in a cute little bag if you go to the dollar store. Excuse me. They have the bags you can put the little loaves of bread in and things like that. And you can give those out for presents. They look really cute. They're very simple. They're fairly inexpensive to make. And out of a big tub of pretzels, you should get at least half a dozen gifts to give out. So these are great to give to like teachers, Sunday school teachers. You can include it in larger gift baskets. They're just a nice little gift you can give to people. And if you really wanted to, here's an idea for you. Take the frosting and put it in a bowl. Put it in a microwave and soften it, just a little bit. Then take the little, 1-inch stubby pretzels. Open them up. Put those in the bowl, mix it up real quick, take them out and roll them in the topping and set them aside. And you can do a little box of those. I may have to try that. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. So baking in. New and need. New. I give you permission to try at least one new recipe if you so desire. But don't go crazy and try and do a whole bunch of new recipes. It's just, and when you do it, just do one batch. For example, let's say you decide to do pinwheels. If you know what pinwheels, it's kind of like the black and white brownies where you make a basic butter cookie kind of recipe, then you divide it in half, and in one half of it you add chocolate and mix it up really well. Then you roll the one, whichever, the chocolate or the vanilla out and make it into a nice little rectangle. Roll the other one out into a rectangle and put one on top of the other, and then you roll them up and wrap them in plastic, put it in the refrigerator. And then when you slice them up, you've got a black and white cookie, and it looks like a pinwheel. They're fun. They're a little labor intensive because of having to divide it up, and you've really got to work that chocolate into the dough so that it looks really good. This is actually one recipe where you might be better off doing 2 batches of it and do one batch vanilla and the other batch chocolate, then divide it in half and do 2 rolls. So you can put the chocolate in with the butter, and that way it mixes in real well. I find when I try to add the chocolate to the finished batter, it can be a little, for me, it can be a little tough mixing it in. So, yes, but you go ahead and try a new recipe if you want to. Just don't try half a dozen new recipes. You'll be going insane, and then you'll be upset because some of them won't work, and you won't be able to, you won't have cookies or baked goods, whatever it might be, to give out. I know it's real tempting. You look at the pictures, and I always want to do this. I always want to try candy, like the Pops or something like that. And there is a knack to it. I've never done it before, so I'm just not willing to take that risk. Let me share another recipe with you, and then I'll do the last one. I thought this was interesting. I will be honest, I haven't ever made these, but I found these in my mom's recipes. Goodness. And it's different. It's different from any other recipe that I've done. These are pineapple cookies. Let me take a sip of coffee here. You take 1 cup of margarine, 1 cup, packed cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of white sugar, granulated sugar, 2 eggs, 1 cup of crushed pineapple with the juice. Do not drain that pineapple. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 4 cups of sifted flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder. Now, here's where it gets tricky. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 a teaspoon of baking soda. So this recipe uses both. 1/2 a teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of chopped nuts. Now, I'm going to add here as I'm looking at this, for pineapple cookies like this, I think I'd like a cup, maybe 1/2 a cup of coconut as well. Maybe I'd put that coconut in my coffee grinder and grind it up a little bit fine, but I think pineapple cookies would be really good with coconut in them. You're going to cream the margarine and the 2 sugars in the food processor. Add the eggs one at a time and blend well. Then add the pineapple with the juice. Add vanilla. You're going to sift the dry ingredients together and gradually add it to the margarine mixture. Add the coconut if you decide to use coconut. Then drop by teaspoonfuls on a cookie sheet covered with parchment paper. Bake in a 375-degree oven for 10 to 15 minutes. So see, where everything else is usually a 350 oven, this is 375. So you'd start with this cookie recipe and then go to the 350 ones. So pineapple cookies. Baking. So the B was, before you begin, you need to make a list of what you think you want to make and inventory your pantry and make a shopping list. A is then adjust your attitude. You may need to go back and readjust your list because you're just not going to have the time, maybe not the money, to be able to make everything you think you want to make. K is you want to keep everything fresh, and you may need to keep it hidden if you're giving these things out as gifts because you don't want everybody eating everything. I is use your imagination. You can take shortcuts. You can use the refrigerator roll cookies you buy at the store and adapt them so that they're a little bit more homemade. Roll chocolate chip cookies and nuts so they've got nuts with them. You can put sprinkles on the sugar cookies or roll them out and cut them out into shapes. There's all sorts of things you can do. And you can try a new recipe if you want, and is also for need. Make sure you verify with everybody exactly what you need. Talk to your spouse and see if there's any kind of baked goods. Do they want to take cookies to work to share with people? Is there any special event? Is there anything at school where the kids are going to need cookies? Is there something going on at church? Because while you're doing this, you can be doing it all at once. And if you do have something where you need bulk, I can't emphasize enough how breads, banana bread, things like that, it really works well. It makes it a whole lot easier on you if you do that. And then G is give. If you really, really like to bake, Christmas is a great time to show your appreciation to people. Christmas is a great time at church. Check around and see who it is that maybe doesn't, older members don't have family or they're in a nursing home. Older members that live on their own and don't have family near them, do a little extra baking and then make pretty little gifts and take them to people. Choose recipes that I use. I like to do plain cookies for things like this, like the spritz cookies. It's just butter. No nuts, maybe no chocolate. Just, find a couple of simple recipes that you can make that just brightens their day. But give cookies, give bread, give candy. As I talked about last week when I was doing my homemade gift segment, you can create marvelous little gift baskets using the food trays from Big Lots, from other stores, with tins. Go to Joann's in the Wilton section and look at the boxes and things they have. There's all sorts of things out there you can use now to create darling gift baskets to give out your baked goods to family, friends, work associates, all sorts of people. And if you do the little breads, I like to keep a basket of them handy because there's always somebody, the postal carrier or somebody delivers UPS, give them one. And it's just a nice way to brighten somebody's day during the holiday season. Let's see. I talked about going to the store and looking at some of the different packaging, how you can work out your bake schedules so you're not killing yourself. Let's see. Parchment paper. Look for fun decorations you can use. There's all kinds of different colored sugars out there now. Sometimes the red and green gets old. There's pink. There's blue. Mix things up and do some creative sugars on your cookies. Some of the different sprinkle toppings, the larger ones that are kind of like frosting, whatever it is, in the shapes, those are really cute. So find fun decorations to put on your cookies. And finally, choose a recipe where you can have your kids come in and help you with them. Maybe it's not something you're going to give out, but number one, it's a great way to show your kids that what's important at Christmas is putting your heart, putting a bit of yourself into the gifts. And nothing does that better than a homemade gift. And it's a great way for them to be able to express their creativity. There's a wonderful commercial on television right now. I can't even remember what it's for. But it's mom making cookies with her kids, and they're doing the sugar cookies, and, they're misshapen and have funny little edges on them and big globs of icing and, the round, hard peppermint candy stuck on them. And the decorations are a little off center and maybe clumped on one side. And they just, I won't say they look horrible, they just look unusual. And yet the kids are having so much fun doing them. Who cares what they look like? Who cares if they're misshapen and the icing is all clumpy on them or the sugar's all on one side and your kitchen's going to end up a mess and your kids, if you make from scratch, are going to have flour in their hair. So what? It isn't about making a work of art. It isn't about making these perfect Christmas baked goods that you're going to, sell at the farmer's market on the weekend. It's about teaching your kids certain things. It's about spending time with them. It's about teaching them that homemade gifts sometimes are much better than anything you could go out and buy in a store. And it's, I can't emphasize the quality of time spent with your kids and your kids together making these things. It just goes a long way to teaching them things that they will carry into their lives as adults and pass on to their children. Let's see. I think I'll run out of stuff to say. Tomorrow. Goodness. I'm talking about entertaining. Christmas is a great time to entertain. I have some ideas for you, ways to entertain. Even when you don't have time to entertain, there are still some things you can do to entertain. A number of years ago, I used to always do an open house. I'll talk about this tomorrow. And one year I got sick, and Mr. Diva told me, you can't do that this year. And I cried because there wasn't any other entertaining that I did during the Christmas season, and I didn't have time to go to any parties. So that was it. And I came up with a way that could entertain, and it didn't wear me out at all. So I'm going to share some of these tips with you, some of these ideas. Remember, if you have recipes you'd like to share, you want me to share on the air or on the blog, be sure to send them to me, either here at Blog Talk Radio or to my email, jeanann@simplejoy.org. And if you have any questions, you can email me your questions or you can call me. I'm always open to calls. But if not, man, as you can see, I can talk and talk and talk. So take some time this evening and plan out your holiday baking. If you haven't started, it's not too late. Just plan it carefully, and you don't have to do a whole lot in order to have a lot of fun with your holiday baking. I'm going to stop nattering on here and click on Mr. Diva and get him wound up. I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for joining us for A Life of Simple Joy. Life of Simple Joy is brought to you by Devotions to Go. Small enough to fit in your hand, powerful enough to fill you with the Word of God each day. Life of Simple Joy is a production of C Media. And thank you for listening.